All right, everybody, welcome to episode 58 of Talking Taker. Check the Pizon, folks. It's our encyclopedic exploration, digging up the career of the greatest professional wrestling character of all time.
Pizon.
Exactly. We appreciate you joining us for yet another round of Dead Man Talking. My name is Alex Dorio. I am one of your co-hosts, one of the creatures of the night, and I am joined by my fellow creature, my tag team partner, my wrestling buddy, Mr. Travis White. And Travis, dude, isn't it crazy that we're watching this stuff from 20 years ago? We're watching Triple H really come into his own as a partner for The Undertaker, and now 20 years later, would you have ever thought that those two guys would still be the highlight of Monday Night Raw, main eventing a pay-per-view?
No, man, it's ridiculous to think about that, man. And yeah, they're like the selling point to this Australia show, man. It's crazy. Like, you know, they're the greatest Royal Rumble match of the Australia show. It's just crazy. That's what everything's being built towards. So you're right, man. Seeing them as co-workers and cohorts here, and tag team partners basically, and then here we are 19 and a half years later, and they're about to fight again. It's just crazy to think about and see. So, because Undertaker is what he is. He's been there for 9 years at this point, and he's been doing his thing, and he's been a top guy since day one. And but here we're getting Hunter really coming into his own.
I know it's not exactly the same. Like, the years are a little bit off, but it's almost as if on these episodes of Raw that we're watching, if Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe were like taken seriously and were like having like a legitimate feud in 1999. That's almost sort of what Undertaker and Triple H having a serious feud in 2018 is like.
Kind of is.
Yeah.
Kind of is.
Kind of puts it in perspective.
Their bodies have held up a little better though.
Slightly.
A little bit.
I say all that, and you might be able to tell, I'm kind of avoiding talking about what we're actually here to talk about. It's, this is going to be a weird one. We're covering Over the Edge 1999 on our encyclopedic exploration through every pay-per-view match of The Undertaker's career. So, unfortunately, that leaves us with hitting this very sad, very unfortunately memorable pay-per-view in WWF history. And a lot of people may forget that the main event of this pay-per-view is The Undertaker versus Stone Cold for the WWF Championship. It's obviously not the most memorable part of this pay-per-view, and certainly not the most important part of this pay-per-view, because, of course, this is the show where Owen Hart tragically fell to his death a little over 19 years ago, and that's what it's remembered for. And that's, we are going to talk about that a little bit later on. I think, we can save our thoughts on that as we get into the pay-per-view. But, we're going to do our best to cover that match, to highlight it, because it's actually a pretty significant match in The Undertaker's career, even though it's completely overshadowed, and rightfully so. And, you may even argue that that match probably should have never happened in a lot of ways. But we'll get into all that, because it did happen. And we're going to talk about the build-up to it. But, of course, we did cover a lot of the build-up on last week's episode. Isn't that right?
Thank God. Yeah, thank God. Because if we hadn't, this would be a 2.5-hour show this week. So, I'll bring you guys up to speed in case you skipped last week because it was a UK-only pay-per-view. Maybe you thought, I'll just skip it, whatever. Go back and listen because it's really good stuff, and we cover a lot of the build-up to this match as well. So, in case you missed it, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. We got the corporation and the ministry have merged now. They're forming the corporate ministry. Shane McMahon is the one who has allowed Taker to access Stephanie's things, let him in the house, gave him the teddy bear, yada, yada, yada. The Union has formed with Test, Big Show, Mankind, and Ken Shamrock, and loosely aligned with Vince McMahon. So, which you pointed out the irony of Vince McMahon being aligned with the Union, of professional wrestlers. So, anyway, also Taker vows to sacrifice Austin to a power greater than himself. That will come into play in future episodes here. He says, I'm going to take your title and I'm going to sacrifice you to someone greater than myself. And then Taker's going to face Austin Over the Edge. Shane's a special guest ref. And then HBK adds Vince as a second ref. So, that's the condensed version of last week's.
Take a breather.
Up to speed.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that means we've got a little bit of stuff here to cover because on the same night as that pay-per-view was airing that we covered last week, No Mercy, the UK edition, in the United States, an episode of Sunday Night Heat was airing, and there's a little bit of stuff going on here with the corporate ministry. It's basically all setting up Raw the next night. The corporate ministry is going to cut a promo in the ring, and really the most significant part of this promo is Triple H's attire in his
Absolutely
shiny black pleather pants, looking like an extra from a Backstreet Boys video, dude. What is going on?
It's out of control, man. He's got like a plain white tee. Does he have a fanny pack on still? I don't remember if he has it
He
on,
might
but he
have.
has those black pleather pants. I could not take my eyes off of them, man. They were out of control. Oh, it was like I had nothing to say, but it was crazy. We see the corporate ministry arrive backstage, and they're discussing something like at a low volume. And I just wrote in my notes they're probably discussing Hunter's pants. So they're probably all just like, "What the heck's he doing, man?" Because I mean, I don't know. He got those from. I guess nowadays you'd call it Hot Topic or something, but back then we had Gadzooks in our mall. Remember that store?
Yeah,
So
I do.
they sold stuff like that, yeah.
I think he borrowed them from China.
Chris Jericho.
Oh, they
man.
do look like Jericho.
It did not fit
for
the
sure.
Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
No, they did not.
Did not fit this version of Hunter Hearst Helmsley, but yeah, it was crazy.
Well, I guess maybe Shane's punishing him because Hunter's going to have to wrestle Stone Cold Steve Austin on Raw tomorrow. That's what happens in this promo. Makes that match, which is a pretty huge matchup and one that we're going to see a lot of in the future. And is also going to make a match with The Undertaker taking on The Rock in a casket match. So those are the two big matches for Over the Edge, kind of flip-flop and switch with each other and face each other on Raw tomorrow night. And Undertaker actually makes a very astute point in his promo when he talks about this casket match.
Yeah, he does, man. He gets on the mic and he calls Rock a silly young man, and he says that.
And just a few short weeks ago, I witnessed you making a mockery of the whole funeral process. You had a casket, you had a hearse. Tomorrow night, Rock, I'm going to show you what a casket is used for.
And I just wrote my notes that I couldn't agree more because
Yes.
The Rock did mockery of it, because we mentioned on last week's episode how they had the buried alive stuff there for Rock and was it Rock and
Austin?
Austin, yeah, that's what it was. And there's no mention, no crossover with Taker or anything like that. So yeah, kudos to Taker for remembering that.
That was a great callback. I love that.
I loved it. Yeah, it was awesome. So yeah. And he says, tells Austin to watch close because his unholiness, my Lord, the one that I answer to, has summoned me, and he wants your gold, your body, your mind, and your soul, and you'll pay the ultimate sacrifice. So again, he's going to sacrifice him to somebody else, this higher power or whatever, and we won't see that come to fruition here on this week's episode of Talking Taker, but I think, maybe 2 episodes from now we get that, I think, so
yes.
We'll see.
Yes, so it'll be on our King of the Ring episode that we discuss the whole higher power saga. So tune in next week for that one, folks.
Oh, yeah, it is next week. Yeah, you're right. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, the corporate ministry's rivals, the Union, get a big tune-up match here on Sunday Night Heat. They're going to be facing the corporate ministry in an 8-man tag at Over the Edge. So, what better foursome to go up against here to warm up their skills than against the Disciples of Apocalypse and Too Much? What
Dude,
a match.
I could not believe that. Oh, that's the main event anywhere.
Absolutely.
I was like, dude, I could not believe that was actually happened. So, yeah, they defeat them. The Union does, of course. I mean, if they lost to them, that'd be a travesty. So they defeat Too Much in the DOA, and corporate ministry comes out, of course. They can't have a clean finish or a clean, no, there's nothing that's going to happen and no one's going to run in. So they come out, of course, but they decide to back down. The corporate ministry does once they see the Union grab some 2x4s from under the ring. So I guess Foley stashed them there earlier in the night. I have no idea, but they pull them out from under the ring, and the corporate ministry kind of backs away. So
smart move there, and perhaps it's something that our old friend Lucas should have done, because he's on this episode of Heat as well, and he gets just shoved over by Matt Hardy in the middle of a promo on this episode, and wanted to bring it up because we talked about Lucas, the WWF.com reporter, a couple weeks ago in our show, and I asked if anyone knew where old Lucas was or had heard from him or knew his whereabouts these days to let us know. And somebody did actually find him. I'm pulling it up on Twitter right now.
Poor guy, man. So he probably was the first deletion for Matt Hardy, maybe.
You could say
That's what
that.
happened. He got deleted.
So at John, I don't know how to say your last name, Gioni or Gioni, John Gjoni. That's a tough one. Anyway, he let us know that that's Lucas Swineford, who used to work for WWF.com and apparently is a teacher or professor at Yale University right now, which is
Wow.
incredible. You can actually, it's on our Twitter. You can pull up his page on there. I tried to reach out for him to see if he wanted to talk about his experience in the WWE or anything like that. He hadn't contacted me back yet, but he does have a Twitter. It doesn't look like he uses it very much, but he is alive and well, and actually pulled up his LinkedIn too, and
Yeah,
he worked
that.
he worked for the WWE for till 2006. It looks like even so maybe in a backstage role or something like that. So there you go, mystery solved. We found Lucas.
There you go. We found him. Now we got to get him back. So
Yeah, we're still gonna
so
work
we can
on
get
that.
him back on this podcast. Oh yeah, we'll see. Those of you are creatures of the night. See if you can hit up Lucas and see if he'll come on the show.
Yeah, I mean,
Talk to us a little bit.
don't harass him or anything like that. But
Oh no, by no means.
if you
No,
know,
we literally want to talk to him. Yeah,
if
I
you
don't
know
want
Mr. Swinegut, let us know.
Yeah, Swine.
Swineford. Yeah,
We'll get his
well,
name
no
right
way.
eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
He's never coming on here.
No.
Anyway, well, that'll bring us to Raw 312 on May 17th, 1999. So this is the go-home show for Over the Edge. So, again, not too much build-up here we're going to cover for this pay-per-view because we covered a lot of it last week. Dude, you got the Corporate Ministry B team coming out at the beginning. So, is it? Well, I guess basically it's everybody but Hunter and Taker and Paul Bearer, I think, basically.
Right.
But to me, it's just everybody else is just the B team. And I just wrote my notes that leather is the wardrobe choice, man. I guess Hunter started something the night before because everyone's got leather on, man.
Yeah.
Acolyte's got those leather pants, and Viscera's got a big old black leather suit. It looks like Missy Elliott from the Superfly video,
exactly
which is probably
like that.
popular. Probably popular about this time. So,
It's 1999,
yeah,
dude.
man, and oh, it's crazy. Yeah, they're out, and Shane's talks about the union's cars breaking down, so they might not be here tonight. And the corporate ministry is going to annihilate some people in their path tonight. And he's got 3 people on their hit list, and number 1 is Vince. So he says, "Why don't you go ahead and lock your door?"
Well, this episode of Raw, I think it's. I didn't double check, but I think it's pretty clearly a taped episode. And there is so much editing and cheesy, goofy camera work on this episode of Raw, more than I can ever remember seeing. Because, yeah, Vince does lock his door. He's in the locker room with the Stooges when he hears this warning. He barricades himself in his locker room. So we cut backstage and we see the corporate ministry heading backstage, banging on the door, saying they're going to try to come in and beat down Vince. So
Right.
Vince and the Stooges are panicking. And this is shot almost like a sitcom. There's 2 cameras in their locker room, so they cut back and forth when Vince and the Stooges talk to each other. I don't know how else to describe it. But then the Stooges tell Vince to check and see if there's anything in the closet they can use as weapons. So Vince opens the closet door, and guess who pops out? It's the Undertaker and Triple H and Chyna, who come crawling out of the closet and beat up the Stooges. And then Undertaker drags Vince into the closet before the camera goes out. It's just so goofy.
Yeah, it is so goofy, like so crazily shot. And you're right. It's perfect to say it's like a sitcom because there's 2 cameramen in there, but like it's just so weird.
You could have had a
I
laugh
don't
track
want to know what
on
was
it.
happening. Oh yeah, I don't want to know what was happening in that closet with Taker and Triple H and China in there. And then when he takes Vince in there later, man, it's just you hear these like sounds of violence, like these over the top like punches and like, it's just so cartoony, man. So yeah, but then the screen goes black. So we come back from commercial and Vince is getting stretchered out with a neck brace on into an ambulance. So I guess Taker did a number on him.
Yeah, trying to eliminate him. That the story is that Shane and Vince are both booked to be the referees for this title match. So the corporate ministry is
Right.
going to try to eliminate Vince so that Shane can screw Austin out of the title and get it inside of the corporate ministry. Well, of course, Austin's not going to have any of that. He comes out to talk later on in the show. We also do see the corporate ministry. We still see them plotting backstage some more, saying they've got 1 down, 2 to go, referring to Austin and The Rock. But Undertaker makes sure to say that Austin is mine. He wants to be the one to take Austin out. So Austin does come out to talk and cut his promo, basically saying he's gonna put his foot into Triple H's butt, Shane's butt, China's butt. His foot's going in everybody's butt tonight. It's basically, and that Undertaker keeps talking about making all sorts of sacrifices and using all this religious language. And
You talk about making the ultimate sacrifice out of Stone Cold Steve Austin. That just ain't gonna happen. You will know that Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass, and that's all I got to say about that.
And that's going to bring out
I thought
the corporate ministry to respond.
Oh yeah, I thought that was a good callback.
Yeah,
for Austin.
sure.
I don't like the Austin 316 thing or whatever, but I do like the he brought it back to it, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, like you said, Corbin Ministry comes out, Shane's on the mic, and Taker and Bear come down. This which is kind of funny to see him like pull on Taker's like shoulder to stop him, and see Taker like listen to him. I don't know, it's like almost like he's his handler. Taker's so weird now, like his character.
Yeah.
It's like he's gone from this satanic cult leader that's a pedophile to like kind of being handled by Shane a little bit. It's just he's not like submissive, but it's just weird to see him taking orders, from anybody but himself. So,
but you notice it like in that promo on Heat too. He's he's in his cloak, very much like the Emperor from Star Wars. He's just you don't see his face or anything. He just like steps up and says his words, and then steps to the back of the ministry. It's weird to see him in that position, just not at the forefront, just as a guy in this faction.
Yeah, just another person. But I mean, good thing for him because he's going to be the main event of the show we're talking about. So, but Shane says he's going to arrange for Austin to have a hospital bed next to Vince tonight. If he, that's their next plan. So, and Shane tells Austin also that he's going to disqualify him on Sunday if he lays a finger on him. So that's important.
Yes.
Little nougat there. It's going to drop our way. It plays into the match that we're going to cover on Over the Edge. So. And they attack Shane and the corporate ministry, and Austin pulls Bear into the ring because Bear kind of gets left by himself in all the melee. He gets in there, and Austin gives him a stunner, and watching Paul Bear take a stunner is gold. It's so good.
He sold it well, dude. He sold it better than a lot of people have. A lot of non-wrestlers.
Like a dead fish.
Yeah, he took it well.
Better than Vince, for sure. Vince is the worst at taking this, but...
As Bear takes it, Undertaker doesn't seem to care too much. He doesn't go in there to save him or anything like that. He just stands and watches at the top of the entryway. And King is noting on commentary that sacrifices must be made for the ministry. Undertaker has said that before, and he is only out for himself here. He's not going to care what happens to anyone else as long as he gets what he wants.
Yeah, that's very true. Maybe he was staying back on the rampway because he realized that Dan Marino was actually in the audience that night. Dan and his kids. Oh, laces out, Dan. So, laces out. Anyway, that's going to bring us to the casket match. The casket is already at ringside for her, so, there's probably a trapdoor in it. That's all I'm saying.
You might think that, yeah. This is our second casket match in Raw history here. The Rock and The Undertaker. Going at each other, and nothing special here. This is going to lead to, of course, interference. Triple H comes out and stops The Rock from rolling The Undertaker into the casket. Then Shane and China both come out, so the Corporate Ministry A-Team is all out here. Undertaker is going to distract Rock with a Death Valley blow, if you will, down low. And then... something iconic is going to happen here. Another thing that I believe The Undertaker is responsible here for, unless I'm mistaken, because Triple H is going to bust out a sledgehammer from what I'm seeing, the very first time. And he's going to use that to smash Rock's arm. Like, he destroys Rock's arm with a sledgehammer, which in theory would just, annihilate The Rock's hand and his arm. and then they're going to roll Rock into the casket and lock it shut. Was that the first time Triple H has used the sledgehammer?
That's the first I can recall seeing. Again, I know we haven't, we're not doing talking Triple H here, but, we haven't followed every single thing. But he's been, in a lot of the stuff we've been covering. And so that's the first I remember of it, man. So, yeah, it was, like you said, we'll rewrite the history here and tell you that Undertaker created it as well.
Yeah.
And he's responsible for something else iconic that'll go down forever in wrestling history as, being Triple H's signature thing, man.
That's right.
That's the sledgehammer and then the shovel to bury people with. So we got all the memes online. But yeah, the sledgehammer. But dude, I do want to say this, man. Like when Triple H is smashing this casket, commentary's talking about how he's just showing a new side. Between this and the main event, we're gonna talk about in just a minute. This is kind of Triple H just coming out as far as him being a big player. He really goes. I don't know. You can see they definitely have their eyes set to push him a little bit more. They got something in line for him.
Yeah, this really is Triple H's big. I mean, we mentioned it a little bit on last week's show that he's starting to come into focus now that The Rock has been kicked out of the corporation or the corporate ministry. Triple H has taken that spot, and he is positioned right there with Undertaker as a top guy. They're pushing his match with The Rock as definitely almost a co-main event. It's certainly the number 2 match on the show, pushing as a big deal. And yeah, we're going to talk about it here in a second when we get to that main event, but it's a really long match that he has with Austin, a really competitive match on there, and this is like the beginning of a big mega push that's going to continue on throughout the rest of the time, basically.
Basically.
I was going to say through the end of the year, but no, pretty much till the end of time.
Still on top, brother. He's going to run the daggum show once Vince croaks.
Yeah.
Which I do want to say, I don't know if we mentioned this last week. We talked about how it was creepy that Undertaker was creeping on Stephanie to try to get to the top of the WWF, and one of our listeners on Twitter, I think, wrote, "Well, just ask Triple H," is what he did. So I can't remember if we mentioned that last week or not. If we did, I apologize. But
touche.
Yeah, good point. Because in real life, first shoot, Triple H did that.
It did work out pretty well for him.
Good on you, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What didn't work out well was backstage. We get Tony Gurria. Golly, I botch his name every time. Tony Gurria and Sarge. They open the casket backstage, and like the way Sarge looks in it, you think it's a dead body or like there's blood everywhere. He's like, ugh! He's like, call an ambulance, call an ambulance. I'm like, can you show it, man? Like, what? You think that Rock was like a bloodied piece of pulp, like it's sitting in there,
In real life, he would have been the way Triple H attacked that casket.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, Rock leaves in the ambulance, and we got Shane backstage says 2 down, 1 to go. So.
Oh, well, then another goofy thing happens as investigative journalist Michael Cole is standing outside of Austin's dressing room. He's saying, we're going to get comments from Stone Cold about tonight's events. And we get this silly camera cut, again, to around the corner as the corporate ministry are just on the other side, waiting around the corner. And Shane says, okay, guys, as soon as Austin pokes his head out the door, we're going to get him. And Undertaker says again, just remember, Austin is mine. And it's just the way it's shot is so cartoony, man. I hated it. But they don't make good on their promise because Austin comes out, he's doing an interview with Michael Cole, and the camera cuts around, and the corporate ministry starts brawling with the union again. It's like been happening throughout this entire show. There's a long backstage fight basically between the corporate ministry and the union guys. They keep brawling with each other.
Yeah, that's going to play a thread throughout the whole show and on into the main event, because then I think the next match we get is Big Show beating Boss Man, and Big Show is rocking jorts and some kind of combat boots.
Yeah.
He has a different outfit every single week in his matches, like FUBU pants, FUBU shirt. I don't know.
I think John Cena was just copying him all these years later. Now I'm realizing it.
Thanks a lot, Show. So yeah, John Cena owes him one, which Big Show credits John Cena with his weight loss and his new fitness regime. So I guess it's just paying him back for this idea right here.
It's all cyclical.
Exactly. But after this match, we see the corporate ministry B team making a getaway. In suit, man, they hop in their car and just pulling out of that arena. So you think they're gone, but oh no, they're
Oh
going to
no.
come back in just a
Oh
minute
no.
here. So
Yeah, like we said, the main event is Triple H against Austin, and it's a long match, pretty
dude,
good match.
it's probably 16 minutes long, which for the Attitude Era, that's 4 times as long as any match you're going to get on live television.
Oh
Like,
yeah, and
it
it's
was
commercial
good
free.
too. Yeah,
They
it
took
was
all the
good too.
commercials beforehand, so it feels like a pay-per-view match. It's like a main event style brawl. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I watched it because I saw how long it was going to be really long, and
Yeah,
I was like, I want to watch this. So,
I did too.
I knew something was going to happen afterward. I could tell just by the way the Raw was going. So I was like, I might as well watch it. And it was a really good match. But
Right.
something does happen at the end of the match. Undertaker's symbol starts being lowered down to the ring from the rafters, and his music hits. The lights go out, and he comes out to attack Austin, and I guess does that cause a DQ? I don't remember like them
Yeah,
announcing.
I never heard the bell ring. I don't think they had an
Yeah,
official ending to this one.
yeah. So somebody is it King or JR says, what does this mean when the symbol comes down from the roof?
Yeah, it's like, have you not been paying attention?
Right,
Have you not been there?
Where have you been?
Oh man,
You know what it means. Oh man.
well, Triple H knocks Austin out of the ring, and Undertaker starts choking Austin out. So Triple H and Shane pull the symbol down into the ring, can finish lowering it out. That brings out the corporate ministry, and then that brings out the union yet again. Even though they're all supposed to have left the building, they all start
Right.
brawling all around to the back. And while all that's happening, we see that Austin has snuck some handcuffs into the ring. Maybe he stole them from Big Boss Man or something. I don't know. But he has, while Undertaker has been distracted, he has handcuffed the Undertaker to his own symbol. And
Yeah.
he proceeds to give Undertaker a symbol of his own, or a couple of them.
Yeah, a couple right from his hands.
Yeah.
Gives him those Austin symbols, which don't resemble a cross at all. They're still not nice, but they don't resemble a cross.
Right.
Still offensive, but still, it is pretty neat to see that. But yeah, then you got Taker being raised up on his own symbol here. It's kind of weird though because he's not facing the hard cam, which is kind of strange.
True.
I thought that was a weird thing, but they still shoot it okay because they shoot from a different camera. But everything else we've seen has been shot from the hard cam. But he's kind of facing the rampway actually. But he starts going up and he starts laughing. Mm-hmm. He starts laughing like maniacally, like he doesn't even mind it, and his music plays. And is it just me or is he like lip syncing his own music?
He like the chanting in his music. He starts mouthing it as it's happening there. I thought it was a voiceover promo, but I think it's just him reciting the words to his music. It was pretty funny, but it was a pretty cool visual to end the show, especially after all these months of Undertaker sacrificing Austin and Shamrock and Bossman and the Divas, all the different women. He finally gets strapped on there, and that was a good way to build some heat for the pay-per-view, I thought.
It is. Yeah, it's a good way to get some comeuppance on him and a good way to make your babyface stand strong before the main event, as main event of the pay-per-view, as we know where it's going to head. You want him to look strong going into this because of what's going to happen at this pay-per-view. So, speaking of the pay-per-view, that's going to bring us to Heat on Heat 43 on May 23rd, 99. This is the live lead-in right before the pay-per-view. You'll never guess, folks, what opens up the show.
Could it be a corporate ministry interview?
Yeah, absolutely it is. Why not? Why change the status quo? So they come up, and Shane got his ref gear on, and he says that he's been
trying to alleviate my chronic shoulder injury. You know, the one that impales my shoulder as I sometimes count 1, 2, and then all of a sudden right there, that pain keeps my arm from coming down on the 3 count. Please.
So I just thought that was pretty funny, man.
That was a good line. Yeah,
I like that. I laughed at it. So he wants a tune-up match for tonight to make sure his shoulder doesn't seize up. Austin versus the heavy hitter from the corporate ministry, good old Midian.
That's who you want to stick out there to take out the world champion.
Yeah, exactly. And I just wrote in my notes, like, why in the heck would you not book it versus Viscera or a handicap match? But later on, I remembered that there's an 8-man tag, so I guess he didn't want his boys wrestling twice that night.
True.
So
that makes sense, actually.
Anyway, and it's going to be payback for Vince beating the crap out of him, I guess, and trying to run him over with a car. So who knows? Midian, that is.
So Vince and the Stooges come out later on for another promo and another segment that basically they're going to call out Shane McMahon. They have an argument over whether or not Austin can compete since he hasn't arrived at the building yet, even though there's a live pay-per-view going on. Austin has
Right.
not showed up yet. Shane threatens to strip Stone Cold of the WWF Championship if he does not face Mideon, but they come to an agreement that the only way that Stone Cold can get out of facing Mideon tonight is if Vince McMahon replaces him in the match. So we're going to get the grudge match we've all been waiting for since a couple weeks ago. Mideon versus Vince McMahon.
Yep. So we don't get that Phineas Godwin Austin match like I just
Sadly,
alluded to. We're
yeah.
going to get something even bigger and even better, if you can imagine it. These guys have actual beef, you know, from the storyline. So, because Vince McMahon... Because Vince beat the snot out of Mideon for a shoot backstage a couple weeks ago on Raw, and here we're gonna get them going at it. And it's kind of neat.
And in that promo, Shane and Vince keep using the phrase "over the edge."
Oh
like,
my
Vince,
goodness,
like, Shane, you've truly gone over the edge tonight. And Shane's like, "I'm not over the edge. You're the one who's gone over the edge." It was
that's
really forced.
Takes us back to one of our earlier episodes. We talked about, you know, he just doesn't let anything happen with subtlety. Vince.
Never.
So which explains why there's like a million recaps during every single episode of Raw and SmackDown nowadays. I got it. It makes sense now after going back and watching all this stuff. So this is that grudge match, excuse me, easy for me to say. But to prevent any interference from the Union, the Ministry park a forklift in front of it, which I thought that was kind of neat. I appreciate that attention to detail.
Sure.
It explains. That's one of Russo's highlights. All his faults, he does tend to explain why people aren't there or are there or whatnot. So I do appreciate that. The Ministry, I think it's Boss Man drives that forklift in front of it and then just walks away. But then, yeah, we get that camera angle from inside the Union's dressing room. They're like banging on it, knocking on it, and Big Show can't see him knock the door, even though he's ripped the door off of the arena like a couple weeks ago. So who knows?
Torn the Titantron down.
Yeah, exactly. But this daggone forklift, man, it's just kryptonite.
I don't know. The main event is not really a match, but it does. No. Nothing cracks me up more than seeing Vince McMahon lay in to Dennis Knight. He like storms the ring and does a double leg takedown and just starts like ground and pounding Mideon at first. It's just, I love it, man. I want to see him just continue to use Dennis Knight as a punching bag.
It's like he's taking out all his frustration.
Yeah.
This poor little guy.
I don't know what he has against him.
It's great. I have no idea. No, well, years later he's gonna stick him in a like thong and make him run around television half naked. So,
you're right.
Poor Mideon, man, drew the short straw, drew the short eyeball.
Yeah, no kidding.
Exactly. But this is just a storyline, an angle advancement, because you're going to get the corporate ministry coming out. I think it's the Acolytes, Boss Man, and Shane. They're going to team up against Vince. Mideon smashes a chair on Vince's ankle. They start hitting it, beating his legs senseless, basically. And so basically they're trying to take him out so he'll be useless during the main event of the pay-per-view. Because, 6 days earlier on Raw, he went to the hospital, or, a medical facility. Pardon my French.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Come on now.
Going to be incapacitated for the pay-per-view tonight. So good little story, I guess.
Yeah, except for after all this happens, as the heat goes off the air, we finally see Stone Cold Steve Austin arriving to the show. Way to go, dude. You just screwed yourself over more because you decided to show up late and you lost the guy in the match who was actually going to help you out. Good call, man.
Exactly. Why can't you just be on time? So I love Austin. But yeah, it is weird to go back and watch this stuff and see how like people rag on Brock Lesnar's, angles the last year and a half, but like Austin was late all the time. And he always came out late in his tag matches, and he was, one episode where they jump off the bridge, like he showed up right before the end of the show. Like it's just he's not there all the time. It's really weird. So
it is weird.
Go back and watch. He's still the greatest, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
So that does take us to Over the Edge 1999, May 23rd, 1999, from the Kemper Arena in St. Louis, Missouri. Yeah, we've had a lot of fun talking about this stuff. So, let's just rip the Band-Aid off and talk about the not-so-fun thing. We're here to talk about Undertaker. That's the idea of our podcast, is to go through all his matches. But you can't talk about this pay-per-view without talking
Right.
about why it matters, why this pay-per-view is important. And it's just interesting to note. This show was, of course, never re-released in any way after the initial broadcast in any way, shape, or form for 15
Right.
years. I don't think even I'm not sure about this. I don't think any matches were like ever included in DVDs or anything like that. From what I can tell, I
I
may
don't
be
believe
wrong
so. Yeah, I
about
think you're
that,
right.
but I do remember it was. I mean, it did not become available until the WWE Network launched in 2014, and that was one of the big selling points of the network was that we're gonna have every pay-per-view available. So like that was one of the questions that a lot of people had. Well, is that going to mean Over the Edge 99 also?
Right.
Because it never been seen since that night unless you had a bootleg copy of it. And it was, and I know there was a lot of obviously morbid curiosity by people to see that pay-per-view. I've never seen it, and I didn't watch it to watch I watched the main event, and that's all I wanted to watch from this. To me, is just like still just uncomfortable to try and watch it just as a wrestling show. I've seen the clips of JR announcing Owen's death and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I've seen that. Didn't need to rewatch it again. But to me, just watching the match was all I really wanted to do for this one. I know you watched through the whole show, and it was kind of weird to see a lot of this stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, I watched a lot of the show, not because I wanted to see anything specific, but I read a recap online from somebody who had recapped it, not of the night, but from the network. And they were saying that they took out every single mention of Owen Hart, Blue Blazer, anything they cut directly from the match previous to when he falls to the next segment. And I found out from doing a little more research that reading as an excerpt from, let me find it in my notes real quick, from Foley's book. Oh goodness, which one was that? It was his second book, I think. He says that he says that they didn't announce it to the live audience at the Kemper Arena. They just announced it to those watching at home. So,
Wow.
And it's actually in between The Rock and Triple H match, which is the second from the top. Right in between that and Taker and Austin is when the audience at home is notified that Owen Hart actually did pass away. I think it'd been about an hour since he'd fallen. And again, you don't see the fall even when they're watching it live. You don't see him fall. There's a video package playing. The camera comes back on, and the camera cuts away before they show him lying in the ring. So you didn't even see the fall. But so I was just curious as to see how they edited it, on the network. So I did watch a lot of this show, and it really wasn't a great show anyway. And I wanted to see the difference in the crowd reaction because, and it does make sense because once you see the crowd for the main event, like they're not different than they were earlier in the night. So they really didn't know, I don't think. So I'm glad Foley told us that in his book. And it's Foley is good. That's where, yeah, he says that they never told that Owen ever died, just the fans at home. So, but again, I was just interested to see, and like it made me uncomfortable before I found that out, because I think the match right after what would have been the Blue Blazer match is Deborah and Jeff Jarrett coming out, and it cuts from whatever happened before the Blue Blazer fall to straight to that match. No mention of anything, and the crowd pops when Deborah comes out, and it's weird to see knowing that minutes before Owen had just fallen,
And I'm sure
weird, but the crowd just moves on.
Yeah, a lot of people in the audience probably thought it was a work. Whatever.
Sure.
It was from accounts that I've read, it was very violent and like scary to see. But I know a lot of people thought it was a dummy or thought it was an angle, and obviously we've seen the lines of reality blurred a lot over the past few weeks on this show.
Yeah.
So I could totally understand that, and I'm sure a lot of people were very, very confused about it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we've seen Austin thrown off a bridge. We've seen Hawk jump from the Titantron, recently. So I could easily see how if you're following this religiously like we were, you might think it's an angle. I'm not going to fault those fans for not reacting, the way, because they could have just thought it was an angle. They had no idea.
No,
And this was '99 with no smartphones. No one's online on Twitter
no
blowing you up.
Twitter.
No one's calling you. Hardly anybody had a cell phone unless you were driving at that point. Like no one had a cell phone back then, so you're not calling people or calling the internet. Getting online, the Wi-Fi, and so like they don't know. So I can't fault them. But yeah, go ahead and say what you were about to say, because we found out this night actually when we were May 23rd was the night we actually did find out, even though we didn't see the pay-per-view.
So you and I were both 13 years old around this time, pretty rabid wrestling fans. What do you remember about finding out about Owen Hart's death? Because it was, pretty shocking moment for anybody, but especially for us as kids, like learning that, oh my God, like a wrestler has died, like, and in such a horrific fashion.
Yeah. So I remember I've mentioned before in this podcast that I've never got to see Heat, never got to see pay-per-views on Sunday nights. I was always out to eat after church, and so. But my buddy at church, Daniel, he called me when I got home from. He did not go out to eat with us this night for church because he got the pay-per-view. So I got home after dinner, and he called me and told me that Owen fell, and the camera cut away. You didn't see anything, And he called me, told me that, and said that the audience. There was an interview afterward, and they knew something was up, but he said JR made a comment that it was not part of the scheduled entertainment or something like that. So JR told you, but again, you never know. Back then, Vince Russo's thing is breaking kayfabe, so you don't know. Like Undertaker's just Mark at this point to us fans, so
that's right.
We don't really know. But I remember going online and trying to check on the story, but again, the information was a little slower back then than it is nowadays. And so I do remember later on, about an hour later, Daniel called me and told me that JR just announced that Owen died. And I was just like, I was at this point in my life at 13, I wasn't a rabid Owen Hart fan. I always appreciated his work. I loved his stuff in The Nation. I had gone back at this point and watched all his old stuff because you'd get me videotapes. And my favorite opening match to WrestleMania ever is still him and Brett. It was at this point too. I love it. I've always appreciated his work, but I wasn't the hugest Owen Hart. But still, watching somebody that you do appreciate, and now knowing that they're gone, it definitely was hard to take in, and knowing that it wasn't part of an angle like Hawk jumping off of a Titantron. It was real, and it sucked, man. It sucked to hear, and it sucked the next day. I got a story I want to tell about that in a minute, but I want to let you go ahead and talk. I've been talking for a long time.
Well, I was devastated by it. As a young smart mark, quote unquote, as someone who, was moving beyond just say, oh, I love Hulk Hogan, oh, I love Ultimate Warrior.
Right.
I was, appreciating character stuff, what makes a good heel and all that sort of stuff, even at that age. And Owen had, in the past year or so, become my favorite wrestler up to that point. And I loved him in The Nation. I loved going back and looking at him as in the King of Hearts days and really appreciating what I didn't appreciate when I was 7 or 8 years old. Seeing that now, like, oh, he's really incredible, really underrated, and I always cheered for kind of like the underdog guy, the guys who weren't quite in the main event level. So I loved Owen Hart, and I remember vividly hearing about his passing. I believe it was our friend at the time. His name was Paul Lands. He used to get every wrestling pay-per-view.
Yeah, he did.
I used to watch a lot of them at his house, but I didn't watch this one. And I remember him calling me and just being in shock, just not believing something like that could be real or happen. And actually, I remember on TV that night was that weird Jesse Ventura movie, like biopic about his life. That's really poorly acted. It happened to be airing that same night, and they actually had a crawl come across the screen, saying breaking news about what had happened, and that was just unbelievable to me. And then it was the top story on the evening news, the 11 o'clock news that night. It was the top story on the Today Show. It was the headline on the newspaper, front page news in the newspaper, and that was just shocking to me because of how much of a joke pro wrestling was at that time.
Right.
I know we've talked about him being on the cover of TV Guide, but in a real mainstream news sense, that was pretty shocking to that it got such big coverage. It makes sense, but 12-year-old, 13-year-old me, that I couldn't believe it. So it was just, it was devastating. It was mind-blowing. I couldn't understand it, and I know me and you definitely talked about it the next day at school, and we're super, upset about it, as I'm sure every wrestling fan was. I'm sure all of our listeners have very personal stories and will remember where they were when they heard the news. And I remember being, not knowing what they were going to do on Raw the next night, not knowing what sort of
Right.
tribute was going to happen, and I definitely cried during Raw that night. I
Yeah.
think specifically like Mark Henry's little poem that he read,
Oh goodness.
and Jeff
Yeah.
Jarrett. I know Jeff Jarrett was very emotional in his little interview, and man, it was. As a 13-year-old, I don't know if I'd ever really experienced death like that. Up to that point, no one
Yeah.
in my family had really died up until that point. So that was kind of a first brush with that. And what, you had a specific story about school the next day too.
Oh yeah, dude. Like every day, every Monday and Tuesday after pay-per-views or Raws, we'd always give two sweets and suck it's all around. That was just the thing back then. We were all too sweet in each other and telling everybody suck it and whatever. But I don't think there were a lot this day. But one thing before I tell the story, I want to talk about. We watch wrestling as an escape, like we talked about. It's a safe escape from reality. That's why we talked about some of this crap that Russo's been writing for Vince about this pedophile stuff. It's uncomfortable. Like we don't like to bring politics in. Want to bring religion just have fun. It's escape from your everyday life. And so when something real happens like this, a wrestler dying, it really does suck the fun out of it. So I can't imagine what it was like for the wrestlers that night. Well, especially
Sure.
Austin and Takers. We're gonna actually we will get to the match in just a second, guys. But we just need to talk about this big day, this big event in wrestling history. So yeah, the next day at school, I remember in tech lab class, which we've mentioned before, Miss Garrison's class. We mentioned about the tech lab here on our podcast, but my group was filming a mock TV news broadcast, and I think I was a co-anchor with a buddy of mine. I don't mention his name, but I don't hold this against him then now, but I did then. But one of the kids in my group was doing the mock TV news thing. He was like, "Oh yeah, in the news last night, wrestler Owen Hart passed away, but no one really cares about him anyway." And I was just like, "Oh man, like
Wow.
it just hit me like really hard. Like, why would you say that? Like, why would you joke about that? Like it's not like even if you don't like wrestling, which this particular friend of ours did like wrestling, so I guess he was just trying to get a pop out of the people. But I don't know. But I just got so frustrated like inside by his comments, and like again, Owen wasn't my favorite or anything, but he's a human being, and he died in front of a live audience. Well, he died later,
Basically.
but
Yeah.
he basically died in front of a live audience on national television. Like he's a freaking human being. So let's have some decency here. I just that'll always stand out in my mind. Like that moment of him mocking it, like the very next day, May 24th.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't have waited a year or 2 weeks as the next day. So I
Well,
don't
that's
know.
one thing coming from a middle school kid, but I think
Yeah.
Colin Cowherd was on the radio the next day and made like insensitive jokes about the Blue Blazer die, and I've never liked that guy ever since I heard that happened. I still don't like
Oh
that
my
guy. Not
word.
the ESPN anchor. I
Yeah.
still don't like him
Well,
because of that. But yeah,
I got news for him.
you said we're going to move on to the match here, and we are, but we are talking about this because you can't separate that from
No.
this Undertaker match. You can't separate it from this pay-per-view, and not to get on a soapbox or anything, but you can't escape it because I know it's 20 years later. I know what does it matter anymore to debate all this sort of stuff, but look, in my opinion, and you can tell me what you think in just a second, but I don't think this match should have ever happened. This Undertaker Stone Cold match. In my opinion, the show should have been canceled. When you find out what's happened to Owen Hart, no matter how much time is left in the show, even if there's just one more match going on, to me, a guy dies in that fashion in front of a live audience, you have to stop the show. It's not like a guy on the roster dying that morning or the day before, like with Brian
Like
Pillman.
Pillman,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe you should cancel the show still when that happens, but I can understand the show must go on mentality at that time. And look, I understand this had never happened before. There's no game plan in place for when something like this happens. So you can almost excuse Vince and the company
Sure.
for being confused and not knowing what to do. And they were. And I'm not I'm not criticizing anybody. Like, they knew that guy. They were very emotional. I don't know what I would have done in that moment. But in hindsight, to me, it's just unfathomable that this show continued on after, like you
Yeah.
said, he didn't technically die in the ring, but he pretty much did. And he did die backstage or in the ambulance on the way on. So he did die during the show. And they still went on with it. And they still had a wrestling show going on.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's just it's not that important. It's not that
Right.
important to continue on the storyline. Like, it's just call the show. Let the fans know. Announce to the crowd what actually happened instead of pressing on through it. And this is not me saying the WWF is responsible. Like, it was an accident. It was a
No.
freak accident.
Yeah.
They have some sort of responsibility for putting him in a crazy situation that maybe an untrained guy maybe shouldn't be in. There's a little bit of that, but it was a freak accident. I'm not, trying to put
Sure.
all the blame on them. It's just, this is hard for me to watch because I don't think it ever should have happened. So, how do you feel about it?
No, I agree because it's weird because I did watch most all of the show. There are a lot of pre-tapes backstage that tell a story throughout the entire show, and that are going to lead up to what's going to happen in the main event. Like we get oh shoot, we get after the opening match, we get Michael Cole telling us that Vince might not be able to compete tonight, and then after the second match, Cole's with the Stooges, and an ambulance is on the way. And Pat diagnoses Vince with a broken ankle, I guess, and then later on we get this him backstage again, and Cole interviews Shane, and Shane says he's going to call it down the middle because Vince won't be there and stuff. And so there's just all this stuff backstage pre-tapes. I don't know if that was a reason. Like at the end of the night, they were like, "Oh, well, we've already done all those. Let's just go ahead and finish telling the story." But yeah, I agree with you. Like
They show
maybe
Vince being loaded into an ambulance
yeah,
after Owen's
yeah.
accident has happened.
After, yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's weird. But, like, I don't know. Again, in that moment, I don't know. Personally, me, I would have said, let's not get the man. Like, once we announce to the audience at home that Owen's dead, I would just say, let's just let Austin come out there, or Vince, or whomever. Austin can do it and tell the fans and just, say, in good faith, we're going to just continue this tomorrow. Sorry, or something like that. I don't know. But, it's weird, man. But they do a good job editing everything off on the actual show. So I wouldn't recommend the show in any way. Aside from that, it's just not a great show.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I agree with you. It's definitely weird. I don't know, but
I also
I don't
think
know.
it's pretty wild that they were bold enough to go through with the finish for the main event and to have the heel win the WWF Championship, especially this heel, the evil cult
Yeah,
dead man, after a guy died in the ring. I don't know. Maybe if you're
yeah,
gonna change the finish, like maybe put the hero on top to send the fans home happy in this sort of
yeah.
situation. That's another thing too. Like, I know
Well,
the audience didn't know about it, but the
like
TV audience knew and were depressed about Owen Hart
sure,
dying. Maybe try to cheer him up by having the babyface win the title. I don't know. Like,
sure,
it's just a lot of
yeah.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know
It's
because like
hindsight. I
they
realize
did
that.
that. They did that after 9/11 when remember when Angle won the
Yes.
title from
Yes.
from Austin for like a week just as a go. But again, that was like a tape. It wasn't It wasn't the
It
same
wasn't
night.
that
So I
same
don't know,
night.
man.
Yeah.
It's hard to say what we would have done in the moment.
It
But
is.
it's definitely weird to watch and uncomfortable. But um, yeah,
Yeah.
it happened, and the match goes on. So
Well, let
and
us
I can't
know.
imagine what Taker and Austin felt like going
No,
through
I
this
can't
match.
either.
So
You can let us know how you felt about it, your thoughts on if the show should have gone on, if this match should have even happened, and tell us your memories about uh, Owen Hart and about this night as for you as a wrestling fan on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and all that good stuff. But let's talk about the match and the pay-per-view itself. There is some. I did watch the very beginning of the show. There is a cool video package at the beginning. It's narrated by the
yeah.
Undertaker with all those shots. We mentioned that they're using his Titantron video now of him basically in some sort of warehouse, all these candles and stained glass and windows and all that sort of stuff. And he basically, I feel like he's cut all this promo before that he's talking
Mm.
about in this narration. But it was a cool video package to start the show.
It was, man. He gives himself all those nicknames again: the Reaper of Men, Chaser of Souls, Weaver of Nightmares, Heart of Darkness, and the Purity of Evil. Which I want to correct myself. I stand corrected. A couple weeks ago, I said the Heart of Darkness was a great movie with Val Kilmer. I lied. It's actually Ghost in the Darkness. It's a Val Kilmer movie. I forgot. It's the Lion movie. Anyway, I'm sure there's a movie called Heart of Darkness. I'm sure it's great, but it does not have Val Kilmer in it. But anyway, yeah. And he said, and Taker says, Purity of Evil from which there's no escape. So then we get this really cool little like logo thing is
Yeah.
Taker's symbol comes down, like, it's CGI, and there's a rattlesnake like wraps around it and like strikes at the camera or at the screen. I just thought that was pretty cool little like extra production values given into these. Taker, we've always talked about how they give his entrances and his videos extra production value, and like Austin's the top guy, so seeing both of them together get this extra like money poured into it is really neat to see just how they stand in the company's eyes, so.
And they do stand in the main event position here. We talked about all the little vignettes already that go on through the night. So they go on last. We get a recap video of everything from the Black Wedding on, although these guys have been feuding sort of on and off since last summer, which is crazy to think about here. Undertaker, Shane is out first, the special guest referee.
Yeah. He's out to No Chance music. He doesn't come out to the corporate ministry music. Why does he come out to the No Chance music?
I don't know. They play.
I don't know.
I don't know. They play shuffle with all these corporate ministry guys' music a lot. Like, sometimes they come out to the faction music. Sometimes they come out to their own music. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. I just wanted to interject. Go ahead there. So Shane comes out first, and then the second referee comes out.
Since Vince is in the hospital. Or the local medical facility, I'll bleep that out, receiving treatment for his broken ankle. Pat Patterson comes out next, looking all fresh in his referee outfit to take Vince's place as the second guest referee. Yes,
he does. I think Pat came out a long time ago. But
excuse me.
He comes out. Yes. Not there's anything wrong with that.
Well, he doesn't last long, though, because... Taker and Bear are out next. Taker's in his cape and with his samurai haircut. And Shane and Pat are arguing in the ring, so Undertaker just gives Pat Patterson a chokeslam. Pat Patterson, he goes up big for it like he always does. But he's no longer going to be the second referee.
No, he's not. And Taker has that Black Raven cloak on or whatever, like he had at Backlash. And it's cool because when he gets in the ring, he just stares a hole through Patterson before he chokeslams him. And like you got Bear and Shane helping him take his cloak off, so he's getting a little bit of pomp and circumstance here, And then he just goozles him and chokeslams him, and it's great, man. But one thing when he comes out, when Taker comes out, JR is like, it's shocking to hear these overwhelming boos. And I don't know about you, man, but I didn't hear anything. Like, it was kind of indifference to me.
Anything like that either.
Yeah. So
I actually kind of heard him get a little bit of a pop, I think, when he came out. Like, some cheers, which was
just because of who he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but anyway, it's a pretty uneventful crowd. I don't know if it's just because of what's happened earlier. Again, they didn't know what happened, but they knew somebody did fall. But they do come alive when this glass shatters, man, and Austin comes out.
For sure.
They are alive and ready to go, and he's got his usual swagger, but he rushes in and immediately just goes for Taker, and is trading right hands back and forth, and Taker hits him out of the ring, and the crowd starts chanting Austin, Austin. So it's just, I don't know, man. It's right to the get-go, I guess, or from the get-go. They're just going at each other. So,
well, Austin busts out a new move. He hits the apron stunner on Undertaker, takes a page out of Taker's book, and then Stone Cold gets up on the top rope and hits a diving clothesline off the top onto Undertaker for a quick 2 count. That was something I don't think I'd ever seen before.
No, I mentioned a few weeks ago how he jumped off the guardrail, and like that wasn't something I've never seen. Now he's taking it even higher and going to the top rope, man. So I don't ever remember seeing him come from the top rope. So I like that. It was good.
It was good.
And then Austin is stomping Taker in the corner, and as Shane gets to the 5 count, he just turns around and flicks Shane off, and it starts over a new 5 count. And it's so funny to watch him just do that so nonchalantly and almost like it's real, man. He's just such a good. He plays that character so well. Austin does.
Absolutely. We could do some play-by-play here, but honestly, it is just a lot of fighting around the outside. That's what this whole match is, basically back and forth, outside the ring, back in the ring. There's some, Shane is continuing to be a heel referee. He, one point, Austin and it's got Taker sort of in a submission hold, and Shane just pulls Undertaker towards the ropes, and then Shane tries to pull the ropes towards Undertaker too.
Yeah,
But
that was pretty funny, man.
yeah, so Shane's doing that. Paul Bearer tries to distract Austin at one point, and Austin decks him, knocks him right out.
It's so good. So good. Yeah, there's a lot of leg work too, man. Like they're working
Yeah.
each other's legs. It's weird. There's long stretches of just leg work, and I don't know, man. It's just weird. There's a couple of Death Valley shots from each other. They both hit each other in the Death Valley and
Yep.
don't get DQ'd. So and it's cool though because I do want to say like I don't know if this was just commentary catching it or not, but Austin nails Taker in Death Valley and Shane doesn't DQ him, and I think it's JR's like, well, title can't change hands on DQ, so I guess that's why Shane let him do that. Wants Taker to win. So I was like, well, I don't know if that was an accident or not, but kudos to JR for catching that. So.
That's a good cover up. I like that.
Yeah.
They go, they fight around the announce table. They fight up around the entryway. They fight into the crowd at one point. It's just not a lot of sort of play-by-play to give here, although Undertaker does end up blocking the Thez press at one point. He catches Austin when he does that and gives him a spine buster. And the announcers made a big deal saying that was the first time they've ever seen anything like that, like the Thez press being blocked. And it was a cool little spot right there.
Yeah, it was, and man, Austin looked like he got dropped on his head for a shoot, man. Like, it was an ugly spine buster. He immediately grabs his neck. I don't know if he was just selling really well and I couldn't see through it, or if he legit hurt his neck there because his stack of dimes isn't pretty good at this point. So he hits that spine buster, and then Austin kind of rolls over to the hang his head off the apron, and Paul Bearer comes in with his signature spot. The loafer to the head, the loaded loafer, hits him twice. And I think that, is it King? It says, well, no one's ever reversed that either. It's so good.
Dude, how did I not remember that Paul Bearer hits people with his shoe in almost every single match? It happens so many more times than I realized.
I know, me too. I had no idea until we started doing this. He did it all the time. So. Yeah. And after he does it, he goes, "It's all ours now. It's all ours now." So he's loving it. So, and JR's like, yeah, he would love to manage the WWF champion for a third time. So, I like that. So they start brawling up the aisle at this point, and then there's some stained glass windows hanging there for the entrance way, and Taker punches right through one. And Austin does. He punches right through one, and Austin throws Taker's head through one. I thought it was going to be a blade job, honestly, but
they could have.
It wasn't. One. So, yeah, it would have made sense. So,
Austin throws Taker onto a stretcher or gurney that's over by the entryway for some reason, and starts rolling down the entryway there. It's an awkward little spot.
Yeah. It was weird.
They brawl back towards the ring, and Taker gets a choke. Austin. Yeah, they start fighting in the ring, and Austin does a second rope elbow, and looks like it's going to be a 3 count, but Shane's elbow just starts acting up again, man. He can't finish the 3 count. King says that he must have a case of bursitis, dude. The poor guy.
I love it, man. I love King covering for the heel. It's so good.
It was weird to me, because Lawler has almost been a face the past few. Like, he's been saying Undertaker's taking it too far, and he's out of his character. But this whole match, he's pulling for Shane and Undertaker. He's flip-flopped.
You're right. I didn't even think about that. It didn't cross my mind. So
didn't cross yours either, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Man, it's after this, Austin just gets in. I think it's Shane's face as Bear slides a chair in the ring, and then Taker goes to hit Austin, but he reverses it, and then Taker gets thrown into Shane and nails Taker with his chair. And he goes to pin him, and Briscoe comes jaunting down the aisleway in his zebra stripes, and he gets in the ring, counts for 2, and then Taker gets up and just knocks Austin down and takes out Briscoe. So he's taking out both the Stooges by himself.
Well, the crowd thinks they've got it figured out. They start chanting for HBK. Yeah. They think he's going to be the one to save the day, but unfortunately, Shawn Michaels not in the building. But luckily, Vince has returned from the hospital, really selling that ankle, limping in there. He doesn't have that typical Vince swagger. He's selling the ankle big time, but he's going to come out there to try to save the day. He gets a little bit of a pop when he comes out. But again, this whole thing we've been talking about, people don't want to cheer for Vince McMahon.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. So yeah, he crawls in the ring, and Taker and Austin have that, the classic double down spot, the double clothesline, double down. So Vince is counting while they're down. I think he gets to like 8 or 9, and then they sit up and stare at each other, but the camera misses it.
Yeah.
Kevin Dunn's usually so good with that stuff, and like we see it nowadays we saw it with Kane and Undertaker on this show, and we'll see it when we get to Undertaker and Brock Lesnar and stuff. They do the double setup, but here, man, I really wish that they would have caught that on camera, because to see Austin do that would have been a cool spot to see.
It did look really cool. Yeah, or it could have been really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
That's going to pretty much lead us to the finish here, as Vince shoves Shane McMahon. Oh, excuse me, as Austin ends up hitting the stunner, but on Undertaker, but Vince stops Shane from counting. Austin hits Undertaker with the stunner. Shane stops Vince from counting. So Vince gets up and he shoves Shane down. But then Austin starts arguing with Vince. He's still not happy that Vince wasn't able to count the 3 count. Shane gets back up and shoves Vince into Austin, who stumbles down, and Undertaker quickly covers him, and Shane does a super fast count to give Undertaker the 1, 2, 3 and the World Wrestling Federation Championship for the 3rd time.
Wait a minute. Hey, hold on. Shane McMahon just fast counted Austin. What? Shane McMahon just fast counted Austin. And new World Wrestling Federation champion, The Undertaker.
But he doesn't have a chance to celebrate here, as Shane just grabs the Smoking Skull belt, runs away, and Austin just starts unloading on Undertaker again.
Yeah, he does, man. It's crazy. I really like the finish of this match. I thought it was a very creative way to get to it. To me, it's got Pat Patterson written on it again. He's so good at these finishes, but it happens in the blink of an eye too, man. If you blink, you miss it, because it's so quick. Where Shane pushing Vince into Austin, who then gets rolled up. But it's really, like I said, really mega fast count. This is the kind of fast count Nick Patrick was supposed to do at Starrcade '97.
Yeah,
he blew that and ruined that whole match. Taker wins just shy under 23 minutes. But like you said, there's no time to celebrate, because Shane is angry, or excuse me, Austin's angry. Bossman and Mideon come in the ring. They eat stunners from Austin. He's swinging a chair at the Acolytes, and we see Taker holding up the title next to Shane in the aisleway, and Shane's jumping around like the boy wonder, the little idiot child that he is. And again, it's weird to see Taker kind of, I don't know, like playing second fiddle to Shane here, with this whole angle.
Yeah, for sure. I think Shane's done a great job in his role. He's a lot better than I remember him being. But it's weird to see Undertaker not the focus, even though he is the WWF champion here for the 3rd time. So that is interesting to see here, and definitely a historic moment for Taker. And it's also unfortunate too, like we said, everybody gets a pass performance-wise on this show, but still, I think Undertaker and Austin just don't seem to have good chemistry with each other, especially over the past few months. And you mentioned in your notes too, like obviously Undertaker was hurt in that No Mercy match that we covered last week, and that was just a week before this show, and he's been nursing injuries for God knows how long now, so you got to give that part of it too. But God, these matches with Austin have just not delivered.
It's weird, man. I don't know if it's because Austin's not a typical face, and like he's not going to be one of those little small, like Shawn Michaels type guys that's going to bump and feed and sell and have the big comeback and then win. He's just, his character's not meant for that. Whereas you got him up against Taker too, who's not your typical face, or he should be controlling most of the match no matter who he's facing, So I don't know if it's just a ring psychology type thing where it comes down to that. Again, we're not wrestlers, but I just, just watching them, it is weird how they just don't have the chemistry that, like, say, Shawn and Taker have, or even Hunter and Taker have. And it's weird that Hunter and Taker have better matches, in my opinion, than Austin and Taker do, because Austin's, the icon, man. He's the man. So It's weird.
Well, we've got a few
But
more to cover along the way here, so
Yeah.
maybe we'll see something better. But next week, we're going to move on to King of the Ring 1999. We've got a ton of build up, the historic Greater Power revelation. I'm sure we'll have a lot of thoughts about to cover. We want to hear your thoughts about this show. Of course, as I mentioned already, you can let us know all of that. If you have some different thoughts, or if you agree with us, let us know. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Talking Taker, and all our different sites. Just want to give some shout outs to some people who have hit us up on social media as of late. Jeremy Bagley on Twitter has some great comments on there on some of our posts.
Yeah, he did.
Dolores Hooper has been going through our podcast from the beginning. She just picked up on us and has been going through this, so she'll hear this after a while. Thanks for listening to the show. You know, all the regulars out there. Aaron Curtis, 426 on Twitter. Mass Raptor. Hey, we've had some new folks reaching out to us and letting us know, commenting. We do appreciate it. We enjoy it. We'll usually follow you back on here as well if you do follow us. So we love to interact with you. That's the super fun part about this. Even when we have a depressing and upsetting show to talk about, it's fun to do it, to talk about it with you guys and to reminisce and commiserate about all our shared memories. Isn't that right, my friend?
Absolutely, and I mean, apparently I was a huge Owen Hart mark because I named my second son Owen. So I guess deep down I was a bigger mark. Man, I've gone on to appreciate stuff after his passing, but I was still displeased that what happened with his death. But I don't know. I wasn't the hugest fan, but I wasn't not a fan either. I don't know how to put it into perspective, but I wasn't as big a fan as you were, obviously, because you had followed him for longer. But we hope we finished off this episode in a bright spot. Talking about this match, even though it was probably about 11 minutes too long, the actual match was. They could have shaved it in half, and it would have been just as good. So anyway, one thing I do want to comment is that JR says the rattlesnake's been jobbed by the boy wonder. So I don't know if he meant to say that or not. A little shootski there. Good job. But man, you guys out there, we appreciate all your feedback and all your interactions. Alex handles all the Twitter. I do stuff on Facebook with us. He does the Twitter and Instagram. So follow us. We'd love to interact. If you were there, if you were at the Kemp Arena, we absolutely want to hear from you about this night. If we're mistaken and they did tell the fans, let us know. According to Foley, they didn't. But let us know if you were there, because this is a big night and a change in the wrestling industry after this. And hopefully one day Owen gets his rightful place in the Hall of Fame. We'll see what happens with that. But if you were there, let us know. If not, ladies and gentlemen, take her easy.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you to please rise and join the WWF Superstars as we toll the bell 10 times and pay our respects to Owen Hart.